Evan Brooks had always lived a quiet life. His apartment on New Arcadia was small, cluttered with spare tools, cables, and half-finished gadgets. He spent most of his time fixing cargo drones, calibrating machines, or running maintenance on industrial systems. Life was predictable, routine, and sometimes painfully lonely. Even though he enjoyed the hum of technology and the smell of ozone from his workbench, the loneliness weighed on him. Eating cold meals alone, coming home to an empty apartment, and sleeping under flickering fluorescent lights had become his normal. One evening, after a particularly long day repairing a freighter's navigation system, Evan sat on his worn-out sofa rubbing his eyes. He thought about ordering one of the new domestic service units that had been advertised on every holoscreen. They're fully programmable, respond to voice commands, and can do everything from cooking to cleaning, the ad said. Evan sighed, thinking how nice it would be to have someone or something to take care of the small chores he never had time for. He opened the order interface and hesitated. For a moment, he imagined the metal robot moving around his apartment, efficiently cleaning, organizing, and maybe even talking to him. Loneliness gnawed at him and he clicked, "Confirm order." A confirmation message popped up, delivery scheduled for the next day. Evan leaned back, tired, and fell asleep before he even thought about what it would be like to have a robot made. The next day, a package arrived. It was different from what he expected. Instead of a neat metallic box labeled Domestic Service Unit, there was a single tall cryostasis pod. Strange symbols glowed faintly along its sides, unlike any language Evan had ever seen. There was no company logo, no instructions, only the pod resting on his doorstep. He frowned. "This must be a mistake," he muttered. He tapped the pod's interface. A small panel popped open, showing a countdown, but the text was in a script he could not understand. He pressed a few buttons anyway. With a soft hiss, the pod unlocked and the top slid open. Inside was not a robot, not even a humanoid machine. It was a girl. She was small, fragile-looking, with skin that glowed faintly in the dim light of the apartment. Her eyes were large, silver and luminous, reflecting the fluorescent light like mirrors. She shivered as she stepped out, and Evan caught her before she fell. "Wait, whoa. Are you okay?" he asked, completely stunned. The girl looked at him, trembling, and whispered something in a language he could not understand. Her hands shook and her breathing was fast. Evan realized she was trying to speak the same words as the robot unit he had ordered. "Service unit. Ready?" she repeated slowly, bowing her head in a way that was almost mechanical. Evan blinked. She thought she was a robot. She was supposed to serve, obey, and follow instructions, but she was alive. He had no idea how this had happened. No company sent live aliens instead of robots. He hesitated, unsure whether to call security, the authorities, or some interstellar human corporation. He decided to be cautious. He led her to his small kitchen, giving her some water and showing her how to drink. She mimicked him carefully, clumsily holding the glass as if she had never touched anything before. When she finally drank, a faint glow pulsed from her skin and she blinked at him with curiosity. "What's your name?" Evan asked gently. She tilted her head, unsure. Then she whispered haltingly, "Lyra." The name sounded soft and melodic, almost musical. Evan nodded. "Lyra, okay. Can you understand me?" She shook her head slowly. Words were difficult, but she nodded when she understood his tone. For the next hours, he tried teaching her simple phrases, basic movements, and how to eat. Lyra observed him closely, fascinated by everything. The way he moved, the way he held utensils. Even the sound of his breathing seemed completely new and magical to her. She had no memory of where she came from. All she remembered was the pod, the journey, and waking up in this strange place. She kept repeating the word service, as if she were following an instruction she did not understand. Evan realized that whoever had sent her had probably created her as some kind of living assistant, something not entirely human, but alive, with intelligence and emotions. Days passed. Evan's small apartment, once quiet and lonely, was now filled with strange laughter, curious sounds, and soft humming. Lyra discovered the tools scattered around the apartment and began touching them gently. She seemed to understand the machines instinctively. When she picked up a soldering iron and touched the circuitry of one of Evan's drones, it sparked to life, more efficient than before. Evan stared in awe. "She's improving my machines," he muttered. The thought was incredible. Humanity had built machines to serve humans, but Lyra, a living being, was not just serving. She was enhancing, adapting, and learning. But the peace didn't last. One night, as Evan checked his terminal, a sudden alert flashed across the screen. A signal pulse, alien in origin, was approaching the colony. The symbols matched the ones etched on Lyra's pod. Evan froze. This was no ordinary shipment mistake. Someone or something was searching for her. Lyra noticed his tension. "Danger?" she asked, voice soft, unsure. Evan nodded. "Maybe. Someone is coming for you." Panic and fear crossed her luminous face. They own me?" she whispered. Her hands trembled and her body glowed faintly with silver light. She did not want to go back. Evan could sense her terror. He realized he could not call the authorities. They would see her as property or an experiment. He could not risk it. He would have to protect her. He led Lyra to a small hidden storage room in his apartment. "We need to stay quiet," he said. "I don't know who they are, but we can't let them find you." Lyra nodded, wrapping her arms around herself. Evan spent the next hours teaching her how to hide, how to move quietly, and how to communicate using gestures. Lyra listened carefully, her large silver eyes reflecting a mix of fear and fascination. Even in danger, she wanted to learn, to understand. As they worked together, Evan noticed something extraordinary. Lyra was not only intelligent, but had an aura of calm and control that seemed to influence the machines around her. A drone in the corner suddenly adjusted its flight pattern without command. A malfunctioning light flickered back to life. She was alive in a way humans had never seen before, connected to technology in ways that were almost magical. Their bond grew quickly. In the quiet hours, Evan told her about life on New Arcadia, about his work and the little routines he followed. Lyra listened intently, her curiosity endless. When he laughed, she laughed softly too, though her laugh was different, musical, almost like a soft chime. But outside the apartment, the pulse grew stronger. Drones scanned the colony, ships passed overhead, and a transmission broke through the static. "Return the bioasset immediately. Unauthorized possession of alien property is a Class 1 offense," a cold, mechanical voice said. Evan's stomach sank. They want me back," Lyra whispered, her voice trembling. She looked to Evan for reassurance. He nodded firmly. "I won't let them take you," he said. "We'll find a way out of this." He began preparing for escape. He gathered essential supplies, mapped out maintenance tunnels, and tried to disable tracking systems. Lyra helped as much as she could, moving carefully, absorbing every instruction. Her presence made even the dull, routine work feel alive. She touched consoles, lights flickered, drones responded better, and systems hummed perfectly. Evan realized she was not just a survivor, she was a force of her own. Whoever had made her could not have predicted her adaptability, intelligence, or courage. And yet he also understood the danger. They were up against forces that treated life as property, and one mistake could cost them both their freedom or worse. That night, Evan watched Lyra sleep in the small corner he had made for her. Her soft breathing, the gentle glow of her skin, the way she curled up as if trusting him completely. It was impossible to imagine leaving her behind. Humanity had ordered a robot maid, expecting efficiency and obedience. But what had arrived was far more, a living, breathing, learning, and extraordinary being who had already begun to change his life. The signal pulses continued, stronger than ever, and Evan knew the next day would not be ordinary. Whoever was searching for Lyra would not stop, and the colony's security forces were already aware. But for the first time in a long time, Evan felt something he had never felt before. Hope. Hope that he and Lyra could survive. Hope that she could be free. Hope that life could be more than routine, more than lonely work, more than machines and circuits. And deep inside, he understood that this was only the beginning of their journey. A journey that would challenge him, teach him, and perhaps change the meaning of humanity itself. Evan could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him as the first light of morning cut through the dusty windows of his apartment. The pulses from the alien signal had grown stronger during the night, and he knew that the retrieval team would not stop. Whoever had sent Lyra here had tracked her across light years, and now they were closing in. Evan moved quickly, gathering supplies, rations, portable tools, and emergency power cells, while Lyra watched quietly, her silver eyes wide with both fear and curiosity. "You need to stay close to me," he said softly, trying to keep his own fear under control. Lyra nodded, gripping the edges of her cloak. She had begun to understand a few words, and stay close seemed to comfort her. Evan took a deep breath. He had prepared for this, but no amount of planning could fully remove the tension in his chest. They left the apartment carefully, moving through narrow corridors of the colony that were almost always empty at this hour. The security drones, activated by the incoming signal, patrolled in regular patterns, their lights scanning the floors. Evan guided Lyra through maintenance tunnels, dark and dusty, where old wires hung from ceilings and forgotten tools littered the ground. The tunnel smelled of rust and ozone, but they were safe from the prying eyes of the drones. As they moved, Lyra reached out instinctively, her hand brushing against a control panel. To Evan's astonishment, the lights around them flickered and then stabilized. A previously jammed motor hissed to life, opening a bulkhead that had been stuck for years. Evan stopped in surprise.
"How did you—"
he began, but Lyra only shrugged, blinking up at him with a faint, innocent smile. She didn't understand it herself, not fully. It was as if her very presence could interact with machines in ways he could not explain. The tunnels eventually opened onto a lower level of the colony, near the docking bays. The retrieval ship was already descending from orbit, a massive silhouette against the pale light of the planet. Soldiers in metallic suits began to emerge, scanning the area for movement. Evan's heart pounded. They were heavily armed, well-trained, and vastly outnumbered. Fighting them head-on would be suicide. Lyra tugged at his sleeve. "Evan, Her voice trailed off, and she glanced at the soldiers. There was fear in her eyes, but there was also something else. Determination. She had been designed to serve, to obey. But she had also learned. She wanted freedom. Evan nodded. "I know, we have to move fast. Follow my lead." They ducked behind crates and barrels, weaving between shadows. Lyra's glow was faint but steady, and Evan realized she could control her brightness. It helped them avoid detection by the motion sensors of the drones. Suddenly, a beam of light swept past them. One of the soldiers shouted, and several more moved into position. Evan realized they had been spotted. He reached out, trying to think quickly. "Lyra, now," he whispered. Lyra stepped forward, raising her hands. The air around her vibrated softly. Machines in the vicinity, the drones, the security doors, even the lights flickered and shut down. The soldiers' weapons powered down mid-activation, their suits locking them into place for a moment. Evan's jaw dropped. She wasn't just an ordinary being. She was connected to technology itself, able to manipulate it instinctively. They ran while the soldiers scrambled to regain control. Evan led Lyra toward the hangar where his old, barely functioning ship was stored. It was a rusted freighter. Nothing fancy, but it was their only chance. As they reached it, Lyra touched the console, her hands glowing slightly. Systems that had been offline for years powered up. The engines hummed, lights flickered on, and the ship's doors began to open automatically. Evan stared at her in disbelief. "You're incredible," he said quietly. Lyra only smiled faintly. "I want to help," she said, still unsure of her own abilities. Inside the ship, Evan quickly started the launch sequence. He had repaired the engines just enough to make it spaceworthy, but it had never flown with two people aboard. Lyra assisted where she could, touching the consoles and adjusting circuits instinctively. The ship shuddered to life, and Evan felt a surge of hope. They could escape. As they lifted off, the retrieval soldiers fired plasma weapons, but Lyra's presence created interference. The blasts fizzled before reaching them, and the ship rocketed into orbit. Evan gripped the controls tightly, navigating through debris fields and dodging search drones. Lyra leaned over, guiding him to a safe trajectory, her confidence growing with each maneuver. Once they were clear of the planet's immediate orbit, they floated in the silence of space. Evan exhaled, finally allowing himself to relax. He glanced at Lyra, who was staring out at the stars, her silver eyes reflecting distant galaxies. "You're safe," he said softly. Lyra turned to him, her expression unreadable at first. Then a faint smile appeared. "I am free?" she asked. "Yes," Evan said. "You don't have to serve anyone. You can choose." For the first time, Lyra seemed to understand the weight of freedom. She reached out, touching the ship's console. Instantly, the damaged systems hummed to life, shields activated, engines stabilized. Her connection to technology was not just instinct, it was a bond that allowed her to reshape machines with her presence. Evan watched in awe. Humanity had sent robots to serve humans, but here was something far greater. A living, thinking, feeling being who could interact with technology in ways humans had never imagined. She was more than a servant. She was a partner, a friend, a force of creation. Days passed as they traveled through uncharted space. Evan and Lyra shared stories of their worlds. Evan told her about human history, culture, and his quiet life on New Arcadia. Lyra shared fragments of memories from her planet, descriptions of cities made of light, machines that lived, and beings who were created to serve but had dreamed of freedom. Each story brought them closer together, bridging the gap between two species. During this journey, Lyra's abilities continued to grow. She repaired damaged engines, improved navigation systems, and even optimized energy consumption. Evan realized that her presence was not just enhancing the ship, it was saving them. Without her, they would have been lost in the void of space, drifting endlessly. One evening, as the stars streaked past their viewport, Evan turned to her. "Lyra, I know this is sudden, but will you stay with me? Not because you have to, but because you want to." Lyra's eyes widened. She had never been asked to make such a choice before. Her kind had always been instructed, ordered, and controlled. But now she had freedom, and with freedom came responsibility. After a long pause, she smiled softly. "I want to stay," she said. Evan felt a wave of relief and joy. They were no longer master and servant, human and alien, captor and captive. They were companions, explorers, and perhaps the beginning of something much larger than themselves. Suddenly, a faint signal appeared on the ship's sensors. It was weak but unmistakable, a search team scanning distant space attempting to locate them. Evan tensed. "We're not out of danger yet," he said. Lyra placed her hand on his shoulder. "We can face it," she said. Together, they prepared the ship, combining Evan's knowledge of piloting with Lyra's connection to technology. The search team approached, but every system the aliens tried to use was disrupted by Lyra's abilities. Shields deflected attacks automatically, engines maneuvered unpredictably, and communications were jammed. The retrieval team was powerless against a being they had underestimated. Evan realized that the galaxy was changing. Humanity had relied on machines for survival and efficiency, but Lyra represented something new, a living being who could enhance technology, think independently, and act courageously. She was proof that life itself, adaptable, intelligent, and brave, could surpass any machine. As the search team retreated, Evan looked at Lyra. "You've done something incredible," he said. Lyra shook her head. "We've done it together," she replied. They continued their journey into uncharted space, the stars stretching endlessly before them. For the first time in both their lives, they were free to explore, to learn, and to exist on their own terms. Humanity had ordered a robot maid expecting obedience and service. Instead, they had found something extraordinary, a being who could think, feel, and change the universe around her. And as Evan piloted the ship through the cosmos, with Lyra's silver eyes reflecting the light of distant stars, he realized that their story had only just begun. They would face dangers, encounter civilizations, and discover secrets of the galaxy. But they would face them together, as equals, friends, and pioneers. In the end, the galaxy would remember not the robot that had been ordered, but the alien girl who showed up instead, and the human who chose to believe in her. They were a testament to courage, intelligence, and the power of life itself. Humanity had thought they needed machines, but the future belonged to beings like Lyra, alive, free, and extraordinary. Evan leaned back, watching her smile as she tinkered with the ship's systems. He knew the universe was vast and danger would follow them. But for the first time, he did not feel alone. Lyra's presence had changed him, and together they had the power to face whatever the stars could throw at them. The galaxy was vast, mysterious, and full of challenges. But Evan and Lyra were ready. They had survived the impossible, escaped the relentless hunters, and discovered the true meaning of freedom. And in that discovery, they had found something even more valuable: trust, friendship, the shy,